Welcome back to the show. We got a great one lined up. Ripple's secret weapon in plain sight. And it's not what you think, ladies and gentlemen, at all. But you know what? We're going to touch on it in a highlight from Paul Barron's interview with me, and it's going to catch you off guard. And guess what else? The market cap myth. We're going to break it. XRP price and what's coming. You're going to want to know every single bit of it. So somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on X, YouTube, and DigPerspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, it's $3.87 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 0.2%. Loving that. Are we going to get back to 4 trillion plus? We'll keep an eye on it. Right now, Bitcoin 109,200 plus, Ethereum 4,400 plus. XRP slipped to the number 4 spot. We're 277 right now. We're off 1.4 on the 24. We're off 5.7 on the 7-day. We know we got Congress coming back very soon. Let's just refresh this and see where we're at here. Oh, it's 277, is it? Yeah, look who's buying the dip. And I just got caught again. Mrs. Backup just walked out into the living room. Yeah, you know what? We're doing it. And that's okay. Shout out to my sister-in-law. She doesn't have to tell on me because I just got caught, you know? I got caught buying the dip. That's all there is to it. Look, I love this. And when the dips come, I try to buy them because no one can ever predict the bottom of a market. No one can ever predict the top of a market. That's why I love long-term investing, because when I dollar cost average and just buy these dips, it just makes me more comfortable knowing that I'm continuing to build my portfolio. And then I'm putting myself in a position where when the market turns and we get all this legislation passed, we start to see the real utility for this asset be used at scale for the first time in its life history. Well, then that's the moment we're really all waiting for. And speaking of which, let's talk about this very quickly right here, which is this. Shout out to Michael Branch. Give him a follow. According to Masari's State of the XRP Ledger Q2 2025 report, the XRP Ledger ended the second quarter of 2025 with a record $131.6 million market cap. Listen to this, in real world assets. Are you hearing that? Real world assets. It is the highest number ever recorded on the XRP Ledger in this sector. Now, let's go to the highlights of this other side of this conversation. I sat down with Paul Barron for about an hour, and he broke this up into 2 interviews based on the topics we were covering. I want to thank Paul Barron for having me on his show. I really enjoy talking to him. It's really a great conversation all the way around here. And I want to jump in where he brings in Masari and this number that is really skyrocketing about real world asset tokenization. And then I want to tell you about the weapon that Ripple has in plain sight that not many people are talking about it, but Monica Long has.
Started to slide, but that really could change it, is the ETF. Do you think the ETF, is it more important to have the ETF or the banking license? If you could only have one, what would it be? I think both are going to happen, but which one?
Wow. That's incredible. Now you did that to me, Paul. You made me.
It's what's most important.
Well, listen, what I'll say is most important, I believe, is that banking charter and that Federal Reserve master account, because I do believe that Ripple is going to serve as the Fed 2.0 in the new digital on-chain economy. Yeah. And I do believe that, the launch of almost 20 ETFs, we could see that happen in October if they do it. And I do believe we could see 5 to 8 billion inflows in a month or just a few months. And then we have to remember too that the market cap myth doesn't work on these assets, because these assets have utility, and that's why they're not the same. And then that multiplier effect is just simply for the audience, how much money at any given time it takes to push through the buy and sell walls to move the price up.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. So, I think that's a huge impact on this market all the way around.
Now, the ETFs are huge, and Paul put me at the river. I had to make a choice: am I going upstream or downstream? So I do think that banking charter license is very important in the Federal Reserve master account, and that opens the door for everything else. But we may see the ETFs approved before we see those licenses take place. So, and I really don't care the order that they happen. I just want all of those things to happen. But coming back to the point that Paul opened up with here, which was really about and if I could just pull this up here where he showed the data. Let me see if I can find it. 1 second here. I think I have it. There it is. It's coming right here. So just
Well, listen, what I'll say is most important, I believe, is that banking charter and that Federal Reserve master account, because I do believe.
I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but he showed the Masari data and basically, pointing out what he showed here. He was showing that on his chart. But here's what I want to do, because there is a secret weapon in plain sight that Ripple is doing, and it is real world asset tokenization. And what do I mean by that? Well, you can see this number, which is astronomical, 131.6 million market cap in real world assets on the XRP ledger. This is only going to explode. And why is this a secret weapon? Because if you're tokenizing the entire traditional financial system onto the XRP ledger, well, then that's where the market's going to be made. Now, isn't it? No one's really talking about this. And this is happening, and we don't even know really to what true degree that it's actually happening. So let's go here for a second. This is a great interview that happened back in, oh gosh, I don't know what it was when this really happened, but within the last year. This says April 25 of 25. So must have been around April. So, but what I want to do is grab a couple highlights out of here to show you how they always tell us to our face. But if we're not really, really listening, you won't really, really hear it. Let's start right here.
Yeah. This is what, this is part of what your product's about, right? Using these blockchain technologies to
modernize infrastructure for financial institutions.
Yeah.
So the thing is it's not realistic that the existing systems like banks are going to plug directly into the blockchain. They do need some connective tissue. That's what we provide. So
yeah, that's what they provide. That's all. They just provide the infrastructure to glue them to the new digital on-chain economy. That's all they're doing. See how just casually Monica could say something like that? Oh, boy. Well, let me bring you in here and listen to this clip right here.
The XRP ledger, which we were talking about.
Yeah.
And so we've always had a belief in, building use cases that would make use of the efficiency within XRP ledger. So the set of services I'm talking about and the use cases that financial institutions would use would be, presumably on this ledger.
Great. And of course, XRP is the digital asset associated with the XRP ledger as well. And
That's exactly right. Now let's get to the next clip here. We're going to go back to this highlights from Paul's interview, but this all ties in. I want to bring you here now to this mark. Let's see, right here.
Secondly, we were talking about how when the ledger was first invented, it was novel in that it had this decentralized exchange built into it. Within that exchange, which, a lot of the focus from our team is on bringing developers onto the ledger who have use cases for transactions in that exchange. But if a trading pair doesn't have liquidity between it, it auto bridges. It goes between XRP for efficiency, speed, and cost. So that will be increasingly important use case as more activity comes to the blockchain.
Yes.
And how do you get that activity to the blockchain? Real world asset tokenization. Right here, exactly what Paul was talking about in our conversation, right? Well, stay with me here, because real world asset tokenization of what? Well, let me show you what is of what, because Monica Long is going to say it just as clear as it can ever be said.
On expanding into tackling other types of financial use cases. So capital markets is kind of like a logical place to expand.
So stocks and
yeah,
bonds
stocks,
or-
bonds,
yeah.
exactly.
The entire equities market. And isn't that interesting? Because you know what? Christian Carlo told us on stage at XRP Las Vegas, and also has been telling people since then in interviews, in a few years, in wake of Project Crypto, every new issue of securities, equities, debt, government will either be tokenized and on chain or will trade at a substantial discount to those that are. Extraordinary policy, vision, and leadership from Chair Paul Atkins, Hester Peirce, and Mike Seelig. So now let's get back to the interview with Paul, right? So let me cue this up real quickly. Now let's jump back into the conversation with Paul and see where he goes next. Take a listen.
Bottom line is, you look at, they've not necessarily launched digital asset bonds, but I think it's coming.
Yes.
The regulatory framework is obviously it's rapidly developing right now under the Trump administration. Market structure is going to happen. It's very pro crypto stance in general. And then you have XRP's price control mechanism through escrow releases, which mirrors a lot of these oil market dynamics.
Exactly.
I mean, if you were to compare the two, you'd go, why is this not price controlled? The way that it's being done right now. So,
And then, we start getting into, Paul, like, well, will Ripple remain the steward of the escrow?
well,
Or
that's the
will
other
the
question.
U.S. Treasury take
Yeah.
over that? If they get the license for the Fed master account, and do they become systemically important
Yep.
to FSOC?
Well, yeah, then you're too big to fail.
Right. And then you're talking about the same. What if they want to take ownership in Ripple the way they did Palantir and Intel?
Yeah.
When we're talking about some real things that could really unfold here if Ripple's mission is realized. Now, that is really why I'm here. There's no question about it. Now, let's move this conversation up here to another place where it starts. Let me bring it right back here and start this.
This was interesting because I got a chance to read it. It was very impressive, but XRP Ledger rocketed to record highs. It's 131.6 million RWA market cap. And then the SEC receives the Title Trust 2 XRP ETF. Okay. So that's getting submitted. And you look at this chart right here. I mean, come on, guys. Did something just happen and wake this up? Or was it a turn on by the market saying, okay, we're going to begin to use XRPL and use this on the RWA open market? Because you're talking about a Q over Q, quarter over quarter increase of 13%. These are highly unlikely you see these kind of growth numbers before. When you look at RWA and the potential use, what Masari reported, crazy numbers. How big could this market go if it takes off like this?
Listen.
Well, that's a great question, but I think it gets as big as the traditional market is.
And before I say another word, listen, I'm not coming from shooting from the hip here, right? Christian Carlo just said the same thing. And he said it on stage at XRP Las Vegas also. So we're aligning with the guy who's the head of the U.S. Digital Dollar Project and the former CFTC chairman and also a part of the Trump transition team, right? That's who's got the same vision we do right now. Loving where we're at.
Because that's where this is going. And I even lean back onto conversations I've had with Christian Carlo on stage at XRP Las Vegas, where, we've discussed this idea, and I've even heard him talk about it with other people. In the next 8 years, maybe 10 at the most, it could be less. Everyone will have every tokenized instrument. Everything will be tokenized at that point. When you look, I mean, the one of the foundational points to all of this isn't just because we want it. The current rails are antiquated and vulnerable for attack.
Exactly.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Trump was on record saying that he was going to basically revamp it with Ripple.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, exactly. So it's like you could see that this is coming. So for me, it's where the world is going. And like Wayne Gretzky said, don't focus, if you want to be successful, don't focus where the puck is, focus on
Yeah.
where it's going.
Yeah.
And this is where the puck is going, no question, in mass.
Here was something further in the article that I think you need to pay attention to. And it was this statement right here. Let me zoom in on that for you guys a little bit. Um, Global investment giant Guggenheim also made waves by issuing digital commercial paper on XRPL, tokenizing short-term debt to harness its speed, low fees, and instant settlement, signaling rising institutional confidence for XRP Ledger. This is a big deal, okay?
Yeah.
Because now you're talking about where they're talking about maybe introducing tokenized real estate, allowing same kind of scenario, fractional ownership. This is something that's been talked about for quite a while. Proppy is one of the companies here in Miami that we've had her on the show. And I believe that this is a future. I always wondered as to whether or not it happens fast, but you look at the amount of real estate market. Guggenheim is a good example when they're issuing commercial paper on XRP Ledger. I mean, come on. That in itself starts to play into a lot more. Remember, the Chinese market is propped up by commercial paper.
That's right.
So this could get very intriguing because liquidity, accessibility, all the transparency side things, all this plays in. I mean, all the right, the right things and pieces are on the chessboard for this to happen pretty quickly. So we could see an RWA market cap with XRP Ledger starting to skyrocket up there, guys. So pay attention to the RWA market. We may see Ripple's efforts start to come to fruit.
And you know what? I believe that's where the real key is. That's where the real secret weapon is. Because what is it that's built into the layer one of the XRP ledger? It's a DEX, a decentralized exchange, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're tokenizing the world of finance, the traditional world of finance, stocks, bonds, equities, then the rest of the world will make a market on your protocol because that's where they chose to be tokenized. And so far, we're crushing it.
Hey, Brad, what are you looking at right now? Go ahead and hit on that.
Well, I want to hit on that real quick because you just bring such a good point to it. So take the real world asset tokenization, and we understand that Ripple's been working for more than a decade building infrastructure to these companies, and it's not just for payments, it's the tokenization process, the payment process, the lending, the custody, everything, soup to nuts. So they can do it. Then you come back to the idea of US digital asset bond issuance and controlling the price of these stockpile assets that are collected through this bond
Bingo.
issuance,
Yeah.
right? So
Now ask yourself, how much is XRP worth with an enormous portion of traditional finance tokenized on the XRP ledger?
now, where does the value come from? The value comes from all that real world asset tokenization coming onto the ledger, while the government's issuing US digital asset bonds, paying a conservative, safe, low risk rate to people. They're acquiring the assets that are being tokenized on these protocols, sending the government's value and control of these assets and the reserves to astronomical levels, Paul.
Countering the debt.
You got it all right here for everybody to know. I'm telling you that for me at my house, this is exactly why I'm here.
There's no question about it. And I tell you, I thank Paul Barron for being able to sit down with him, talk to him, and try to open this conversation up. Look, I'm not showing these highlights of these videos just to show pieces and clips of me. I'm showing these because I'm very grateful and appreciative to Paul for having me on his show so we can take this conversation to a broader audience, because I really believe that this is what is happening. And I really believe that a lot of people are unaware that Ripple is in a position because they built the market infrastructure for over a decade with these enormous players in the financial system. Who do you think they're going to turn to tokenize everything, knowing that Ripple was there for a decade, helping them build the solution needed to participate in this on-chain economy? And that's how I get to where I am today. And I say, come on, Congress, we're waiting on you. It's time to let this thing rip. And we need you to get back into Congress and do your job and pass that Clarity Act and make it law. Let's get the president sign on his desk so he can sign it into law. That's where we're at. Look, I'm going to leave it right there. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. It's just my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.